Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my esteemed panel, good afternoon to you all. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Stephanie, for that very insightful keynote address. I'm going to kick us off with just a quick recap. 3 key points that I took away from that insightful conversation. Key point number 1, sustainability is a key strategic priority for all of us. We know that most of the companies sitting here in this room are already striving for net zero. We understand that it's across all of our strategies. What does it really mean, and how are we going to get there? How do we turn a priority into meaningful action? We're beginning to realize that sustainability is an opportunity for growth. It's no longer a trade-off between either saving the planet or protecting our bottom line. We know we can do it both. And to quote ex-CEO of Unilever, Paul Pullman, profit for profit's sake is no longer sustainable. Key point 2, we understand that there are several factors that drive sustainability transformation. We heard a lot today about regulations, and we're going to deep dive into some of that today. But regulation, compliance, directives, that's just one aspect. There are others. Our customers. Our customers are demanding that we become more sustainable in our image, in our products, in our offerings. So there is a key driver there. And the third driver is efficiency, internal demands, saving costs. It's a driver to our sustainability transformation journeys. We also know, we heard from Stephanie today, that 44% of CEOs around the world are saying that sustainability is within their top strategic priorities. And within Singapore here today, it's a staggering 70%. I'm really hoping that through today's conversation, we're going to get into the how. How do we get there? And then the last takeaway for me is, in order to future-proof ourselves, we need to invest. We need to invest within our staff, within our capacity, within our understanding of what sustainability transformation within our companies look like. We need to overcome those barriers. The barriers are real. The barriers are at all levels of the organization, all the way up to C-suite. And we need to really invest in technology that can support this transformation. And as Stephanie ended off, how do we automate those reporting requirements, which are coming hard and fast? And as Stephanie said to us, within the matter of next 12 months, every single company here in this room is going to be involved at some level of disclosures, directives, and reporting. So with that, let me turn to our panel. And I'm going to start off with Justin. And I'm going to ask each one of you in turn, could you give us your definition of what net positive looks like? Justin.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Glad to be here. Thank you, Fujitsu, for giving me this opportunity. Net positive is something quite a new term. We always hear about net zero. Positive doesn't mean you compromise, you increase your carbon emission. Actually, the meaning is how to have a positive impact, contributing to all this sustainability. Just to share, it is pretty much in the Panasonic strategy. Panasonic, we announced business strategy of green impact. So the keyword is impact. And at the headquarters, they choose impact is because the final 3 characters are actions. This is different from more than 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we had this strategy called innovation. At the time, I think innovation is something that we are trying new. But I think now the time is right with green impact. How do we do it is, for example, we have a target. By 2020, we want to reduce to net zero, 2050. 2030, our target is to reduce carbon emission by 30% compared to 2013. That is our top-level management target. And globally, together with our supply chain, we contribute 1% of the carbon emission. So that is quite ambitious target. So how do we do it is, yeah, I think just now Stephanie mentioned about it's not easy to do it. You need more people, process, and technology. So for Panasonic, we like to be the leader to showcase. It is not something philosophical good to do. Indeed, it makes sense, business sense, in terms of reducing costs and creating new services and products. Yeah.
Thank you, Justin. Stephanie, what is net positive and what does it really look like in practice?
So to me, net positive centres around the three things, right? It's that people, planet, and prosperity. The people aspect is obviously bringing social good, right? Reducing social injustices, being able to have a positive impact on people's lives economically as well as generally. I'm not going to say spiritually, but certainly looking at improving livelihoods, shall we say. When we look at the planet, obviously there is the ability to not just get down to zero carbon emissions, but being able to look at increasing things like biodiversity, right? Being able to improve the biodiversity that we have in our local environment as well as globally. In some cases you might have organisations or countries that are actually able to start to, consume more carbon, I guess, or bring, produce more oxygen or produce more non-greenhouse gases, so that they're actually in a state of lower than zero when it comes to carbon emissions. The other area is also bringing economic value, right? So if we don't have some form of prosperity, we're not going to have jobs. The government may not have an income, so I know that some people talk about going to some sort of general income, but that doesn't happen unless there's some sort of income from something. So we do need to have some sort of economic prosperity in order to make our whole system function, right? We do need to buy and sell goods and be able to live. So yeah, those three things would be the basic things: people, planet, and prosperity.
Great. Thank you. And Nick, last by no means least, what does net positive mean to you? And how are we going to ensure that we're working towards a net positive future?
So thank you very much, and good to see everybody today. As I was introduced, my background is really in mergers and acquisitions and joint ventures, so if you indulge me, my responses will be a bit corporate development in their nature, and they will be sort of data-driven. But when I thought about this question, I looked at it in three layers, and these are the three layers of the Fujitsu strategy. If we could just put that up on the slide, that would be helpful. So Fujitsu's strategy is broken into three layers, as I said: the why, the what, and the how. The why is, why are we here? The what is, what are we doing? And the how is, how do we do it? So today let's focus on the why and the what. So it's not coming up, and I wanted to put it up on the screen because if I say it, it's not going to be remembered, but let's give it a shot. Our purpose at Fujitsu is to make the world more sustainable by building trust in society through innovation. So that's the why. That's the Fujitsu why. Okay. And then secondly, let's look at the what. And the what is our vision. Now, the Fujitsu vision is to be a technology company that realises net positive through digital services. So you can see that is embedded into our vision. It's embedded into the Fujitsu strategy. And similar to what Stephanie said, we talk about a net positive in three areas: people, planet, and prosperity. And from a people perspective, we're talking about improving health and wellness outcomes. And I walked around earlier today, and you've got the three breakout rooms. If you go to the breakout room on the right, you will see examples of that work that Fujitsu is doing. And then secondly, we talked about planet, and we want to reduce the environmental damage of our activities. And that is on the left-hand side of the breakout rooms today, if you go towards those. And then thirdly, these prosperity. We want to create more sustainable business models. So in each of these three areas, we're working to be a net contributor to society. So we basically take out less than what we put in, and that's what I see as net positive.
Wonderful. Thank you to you all. Let me move now to Panasonic and Justin. Today, this week, this year, these years gone by, we have heard so much about AI and what AI can do for sustainability transformation. Can we hear from you? How have you, in Panasonic, utilized and leveraged AI technology in being a differentiator within your space? How has AI enabled your sustainability transformation journey? And what are the key ingredients in a digital transformation journey?
Okay, I think there's a difference in two perspectives, how technology can be adopted. One is technology is to replace people. I think that's a wrong way to go down, because when you have that mindset, definitely within company, the staff will resist, because they are afraid, to use this technology. Company will kind of lay them off. I like Japanese culture. I've been working with Japanese company all my career life, because it's about people. In fact, how to use all this technology to allow people to do more. Rather than artificial intelligence, it's more augmented intelligence. Augment means we use it to empower people, make their life easier, so that they can move up higher value chain. In fact, recently I've been reading some news. After 2 years of GPT coming out, nobody is seeing transformation. And with the share price skyrocketed, whether there's a bubble. But I believe all this technology, they must be game changer, moving into some blue ocean, some new area. Sustainability is a new area. Nobody knows how to do it. That's where I think while it is coming as something must be done mandatory due to regulation. Like Singapore, government have to do it because we are an island. If we don't do something about it, big trouble for us. And all those young people are becoming the voters, so they also have a voice. So I think AI can help us moving to new areas that without stressing our staff currently. That is how we intend to deploy AI to make a balance with all these new additional responsibility requirements, yet they will be able to fulfill it.
Thank you. And in talking about Japanese companies, let me turn to Nick. Nick, AI. We know that it's revolutionizing industries. We know that it has the potential to rapidly change our world. We know that AI offers transformational opportunities, particularly in scaling our sustainability efforts. Could you maybe tell us how are Fujitsu's strategic investments and our partnerships in AI and data solutions contributing to Fujitsu's sustainability goals, particularly in high growth areas like energy efficiency and carbon reduction?
So you asked a question before, was net positive a buzzword? Well, AI is a buzzword, I believe, today. And I'm going to need to use some data to bring my answer to this question to life. So last night I read that between 2021 and 2023, there's been 461 acquisitions in AI. And 96% of those acquisitions have been done by corporate companies like Fujitsu and Microsoft and others, looking to enhance their offering to their customers. So Fujitsu's been active in AI as well. And some examples I'll give start with Kazuchi. It's an AI platform that Fujitsu's built over the last few years. It was launched in April 2023 to our customers to enable them to build on top of an AI platform. Recently, we invested in a company called Cohere. It's a Canadian company that's built a large language model. Its differentiation from the other large language model companies, it provides B2B solutions. So you do it on-prem as opposed to in the cloud. So we've invested in that company and now we're building solutions around that for our customers. We invested recently in a company called Sakana AI in Japan, which is well known there. It's a very fast-growing startup. We've got a venture capital arm at Fujitsu, which is a $100 million facility, and we've used that to buy into a number of early-stage companies. An example is Autofleet in Israel, which is using AI, and we're working with Fujitsu, using AI to optimize fleet operations and reduce emissions. Now, that investment does a number of different things, but it's also supporting the World Business Council Sustainability Development objective of achieving carbon neutral transport. We also invested in a French company called Metron about a year ago now, and we're working with them to use AI to optimize energy consumption in the industrial environments. And finally, there's an example that you can actually go and try out after this discussion across the hall on the right-hand side. It's a solution called Text Tracer, and it uses AI, blockchain, and IoT to give consumers the ability to scan a QR code on a product to see how much CO2 was used in the development of that product. So giving them the ability to make conscious buying decisions. So AI is a buzzword. It's just starting, but I think it's got a long way to go.
Thank you. And I hope that everyone gets an opportunity to try Text Tracer just outside, because it really is a very interesting journey that you could all go through. Stephanie, still sticking with AI though, let me ask you, based on your broad knowledge of not just Singapore, but the region, so across ASEAN, how are you viewing companies, governments and other stakeholders in their utilisation of AI for sustainability? Maybe you could offer us a few thoughts.
I think Nick kind of got the gist of a couple of trends, which is firstly around carbon emissions reduction. There's a lot of focus of AI on that, using the optimization capabilities. We are just starting to see, increased use of digital twins, simulation, mathematical optimization, using AI technologies in order to drive down the carbon that is used in the process. And this is also, looking at electrification and starting to model some of the capabilities around, electrical versus, ICE vehicles, etc. And what are the options available to organisations? I mean, in Indonesia and Thailand, and where there's some pretty large cities, they're looking at, and even India to another extent, is looking at what are the options with large cities, and how can I use electric bicycles, for example, in lieu of transportation vehicles, etc. When we're looking at routes. When we look at cities, we're starting to see simulations for buses, public transport, other ways of moving goods. Hopefully not the MRT again, but sorry, I got to take a dig at that. Yeah, well, you know what? Singapore's famous for using a BMW bus MRT walk. But the use of digital twin and simulation in optimizing that is certainly something that organizations that are moving in this space are definitely doing. Now, I'm phrasing that very carefully, because one of the big problems that we have here is not enough data. A lot of organizations do see AI as the light at the end of the tunnel, but you do need, to look at Text Trace, for example. There's what you said, IoT. There's, a lot of data collection that goes into this in order to enable this to happen. If you have this big light at the end of the tunnel, and maybe you're right, it is a bit of a buzzword, but there's a brick wall there which is not enough data, right, in order to facilitate the models that we're putting, we were hoping to put together. And so it is important that we get our data in line in order to make sure that we're able to have these AI models that are going to enable us to support these sustainable outcomes. And it's certainly a journey that many organisations are on.
Wonderful, thank you. I want to turn now to talking about the ecosystem and Scope 3. And Stephanie, in your keynote address, you touched on this point, and I want to elaborate on this a little bit more. So turning to you, Justin, in terms of Scope 3, and I'm sure many of you are familiar, Scope 3 are the indirect greenhouse gases that are outside of our direct control, but within our supply chains. So thinking about Panasonic's Scope 3, you manufacture and produce a number of items. You have a whole host of raw materials, minerals that you acquire. How does Panasonic ensure transparency within your supply chain?
Yep. So sustainability is not only meeting the environmental compliance. They are, especially in Europe, about all these toxic substance. It is about ethical supply chain to make sure all our partners we follow this responsible sourcing, and the other one is fair labor practices. So once we announce this, we also want to make sure the supplier who are aligned with us, we work together. That's how we can fulfill the total collective, which I mentioned. 1% carbon emission total is the whole supply chain. So we cannot do it alone. Without support from our all these partners and suppliers. So it requires us to align our strategy together with them, bring them on board, together. I think the other one is definitely supply chain. We will need to make it visible end to end using a platform. So all these things we have to move away from traditional reporting to all this real-time capturing of information data from the platform.
Thank you, Justin. Nick, we've spent lots of time talking about the E of the ESG. Let's turn to the S, social impact. Maybe you could tell us about the impact investing that Fujitsu is currently engaged in. How does this help tackle societal challenges? And how is our impact investing strategy supporting sustainable business growth?
So, as I mentioned earlier on, Fujitsu created a corporate venture capital fund 3.5 years ago. It's a $100 million fund. And so far, there's about 15 investments that we've made through that fund. There's two types of investments. We make business investments that are linked to the business of Fujitsu. So there needs to be a relationship, a nexus between what the company we're investing in does and what Fujitsu does. So there needs to be that business relationship. We're also doing impact investing through the CVC, where we seek out companies that help solve social issues. Think planet, prosperity, and people. These companies have businesses that are not necessarily linked to what Fujitsu does. So let me bring it to life with two examples. The first one is around the theme of prosperity. Gojo. Gojo is a company which we invested in about a year ago, which provides financial services such as microfinance to low-income households in developing countries. As of April of this year, they have 2 million customers using this microfinance tool. This company operates in countries like Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Cambodia, India, and Tajikistan. A second one I'll talk about is a company called Unifar, and this is really about people. It's a small investment we made in a company that operates in the area of childcare. In many childcare centres, they are very much understaffed, and the staff are overworked. And kids have a habit of, when they're meant to be lying down, to get up and walk around, and that's the time when the staff helpers are meant to be doing all the paperwork. So we're using that investment, coupling it with our AI to help them improve the outcome of the work they're doing. So our pipeline of impact investments is growing. We are putting a second fund in place next year, so I expect it to continue to grow in the future.
Wonderful, thank you. And Stephanie, let me turn to you. And if I were to sort of slightly stretch the definition of the G, given that we've touched on the S, we've touched on, sorry, the E, the S, and now let's turn to the G, the governance. And we couldn't possibly end this discussion without deep diving a little bit into the regulation, the directives, the legislation that is coming in. Perhaps you could just elaborate a little bit more, following on from your keynote, in terms of what you're actually seeing in terms of companies here in Singapore and in ASEAN, in terms of what these legislations and these requirements actually mean for companies and for leadership, and how leadership is turning this legislation into action. What does that look like? And what does that mean for companies sitting around the room?
Well, let's just have a quick, I think the main areas of impact is the increase on the requirement for compliance and reporting, right? That's a hard-hitting thing that's, firstly just, is front and center, I think, for most executives. And that's because it is a risk mitigation exercise. If I'm not able to report, then I'm not able to respond to the regulations that are coming in. And it has a secondary thing. I'm not able to have the data ready for responding to RFQs, right? Fundamental thing. So that's certainly one thing. The other is, having access to money, being able to make sure that I have access, especially in larger organizations. I want to make sure that I have that, and that I'm able to then adhere to some of the regional sustainability frameworks that are coming in. Now, it's not just, as I said, about Singapore, it's also about the region. There are discussions around an ASEAN Green Deal, there's the European Green Deal. I mean, these things are expanding, and so for many organisations, this is top of mind. So from one side, there's reducing the carbon emissions, and there's looking at the ESG and reporting framework. Now, from the other, as I said, it's not all about comply, or cost. There's also the opportunity to differentiate, and I think this is a big one, because if I know some organisations that are actually, they're able to comply in countries like Singapore or South Korea or Australia or New Zealand, wherever there's more advanced regulations. They then turn around and lobby governments in other jurisdictions to try and get those put into law, because then they have a competitive advantage, right? So there is an opportunity to use this to actually put your competition on the back foot, and then they're forced to keep up. All right, just through regulatory compliance. But there's also the other side of things where consumers are wanting this, right? So consumers or your supply chain is demanding it. You become supplier of choice. You become supplier where you're the least risk, right? And I think, Nick, you and I were having a conversation about, some of these metrics are actually coming in when it comes to evaluating risk for investment, risk for partnering as a supplier or as a customer. This is something that's going to allow you to compete better, right? And it becomes that point of differentiation. And I think, so looking at the compliance side is one thing, but looking at how can I actually differentiate with this? And I think the opportunity, again, is now to do that, because you'll be ahead of the market.
Thank you. And I'm being given the 5-minute mark, and this really wraps us up. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for this riveting conversation, but I can't let you go just yet. Stephanie made us do a body poll, which I found very interesting. Some of us were here, and some of us were here, some of us were here, and the very few, and I think I spotted one, were up here, loud and proud about where we are in our sustainability journey. To each one of you, let me just ask you for your final comments. And Justin, I'm going to start with you. Regardless of where we are in our maturity, within our sustainability transformation, and all of us are at different stages, and that's absolutely fine, what advice can you give to this wonderful audience about how to accelerate upon our own sustainability journeys? What would be your key takeaways?
Okay, we have to recognize, I think sustainability is not an option, I would say. It is like a F1 race car, right? There's a ban, so no longer the road is the same. You can continue to drive the same. We have to prepare for a ban. Whether we like it or not, we have to make a change. either you realize it earlier or you realize it later, whereby no choice. I see even like you see China company are very competitive. The government actually push all these sustainabilities. Even Europe side, they can't stop it. They only can use the excuse of overproduction. In terms of regulation, they fulfill all the thing. So I believe, if China can do it, why not us, right? So that is something. It's mega trend. It's not something nice to do, but I think for business side we have to think very hard. That's the future. Right?
That's the future. And if China can do it, so can we. I can see that across a headline tomorrow morning. Stephanie, over to you. You've given us so many nuggets already. You've told us that, our ability to accelerate on our sustainability journey is our differentiator, is going to set us apart from our competitors, is our opportunity for growth, is an avenue for profitability. Could I just ask you, are there any more nuggets that you could advise this audience in how to accelerate on our sustainability journeys?
Doesn't matter where you are in your journey, get your data right. Start collecting data now, right? It's not just going to help your sustainability journey, it's going to help your operational efficiency journey, it'll help your financial journey, it'll help your strategic journey. Get your data right. From a sustainability perspective, having your data will allow you to comply, it will allow you to accelerate, it will allow you to innovate, right? So regardless of whether you're here, or here, there's always a place for data in this. And then if you want to then extrapolate that into AI use cases and start to leap ahead of the competition, then you're in the awesome zone, right?
Data. You heard it here, guys. And I think, you said no one was ever a real fan of Excel spreadsheets, and I'm sure all of us have had lots of pieces of data hidden away in tabs and tabs and tabs and tabs of Excel sheets. We no longer have to do that because we know that there are AI solutions that can help us automate our data, that can help us use our data to turn that into insights, that can even help us forecast and scenario plan. And we've got some wonderful examples in the experience tracks just out there. So wonderful data. Nick, last by no means least, what are your key takeaways for how companies can accelerate on their sustainability transformation journeys?
I'd say two things. The first is collaborate across all parts of the business. It's not just the responsibility of the sustainability department. It really is the responsibility of the whole organisation. That's the first thing. And the second thing, in keeping with my theme of investing and partnering, was interesting in Stephanie's wrap-up in her last slide. She said, build strategic ESG partnerships, and I fully endorse that. I'd suggest great partnerships, strategic investments that give you access to world-class solutions without having to pay world-class prices. Okay, so thank you.
So, folks, to my colleagues around the room, you heard it here first from an EVP. Sustainability is not just our job sitting in sustainability offices. Collaborate. Every single department has a responsibility. Thank you, Nick, for sharing with that. And with that, you've been a lovely audience. Thank you very much.